Well, I think we'll get started. Hello, welcome to the August Arts Industry Social Hour. I'm already off to a good start with that. This event is produced by the Downtown Duluth Arts Collective. This is our last panel discussion for the summer. We're so happy to have a fabulous panel of co-hosts joining us tonight. Terry Moses and Jordon Moses from Blackbird Revolt, and Flo Matamoros and Jamie Ratliff from Pro Gallery and Collective. It's going to be another great hour of discussion. A couple of guidelines before we get started. If you haven't already, please mute your sound until the Q&A session at the end. Feel free to say hi and ask questions in the chat. Please know this event is being recorded and will be posted on our website and social media platforms. If you need live transcription during this hour, please utilize the link and simple instructions posted in the chat for otter.ai. We want to thank the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council and the voters of Minnesota who have made this event possible through grants and legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Okay, that's all I have to say. So let's turn it over to our wonderful panel.
Hi. Like Amanda said, I'm Jamie Ratliff. I am part of Cove Collective. I'm going to be sort of loosely moderating tonight and asking questions and hopefully developing a good conversation between the four of us and then between the larger group later on. So I'm going to have everybody who's a part of the panel go around and introduce themselves, please. Why don't we start with Terry?
Hello, everyone. My name is Teresa. I also go by Terry, she, her pronouns. I'm the creative director at Blackbird Revolt. I've been a designer for probably 14 years now. And so I handle a lot of the creatives that come out of our organization. I'm also an assistant professor of graphic design and director of design justice at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. And let's see, I am the co-creator on a project called Racism Untaught, which we'll talk a little bit about, and creator of Project Natural. And a lot of my work focuses on social justice, Blackness, identity-based work. So that's a little bit about me. I'll popcorn to Jordon.
Are we popcorning? I didn't read that in the guidelines.
I just made it up because I'm creative like that.
Well, my name is Jordon Moses, he, him. I'm the visionary director with Blackbird Revolt, which means I'm concerned with thinking about and planning for the future. In a lot of ways, I am art adjacent, so I don't do a lot of art myself, but I'm always in art and design spaces, co-creating with people and finding ways to support the arts and weave the arts back into culture and movement work. So do a lot of different things. One of the things that I used to do, kind of still do, is All Black Zine. And we would host those shows actually at Pro Gallery, which is probably my favorite space arts-wise in Duluth. So that's a little bit about me. Since we're popcorning, Flo, popcorn, salt and butter.
Hello, my name is Flo, and I'm a curator and a co-director at Pro Gallery. They, she pronouns. A lot of the stuff that I do deals with vulnerability and identity. I like to talk openly about mental illness and how you can deal with it through the arts, and the value of vulnerability when it comes to creating. So one of the main topics that we explore at Pro Gallery in our teen zine workshops that we host, thanks to multiple grants, one of them being Arrowhead Regional Arts Council, is about identity and how finding all of these really important things about yourself and naming them goes a long way, and it helps you create really great things. But other than that, Pro hosts a lot of great shows throughout the years, and one of my great colleagues, Jamie Ratliff, I'm gonna popcorn her.
All right, thank you. Hi, like I said, Jamie Ratliff. I am also one of the co-directors at Pro Gallery, which is in downtown Duluth. I think I've been associated with Pro since 2016, 2017, right around then when Jordon was also still a board member back then. And in the at my day job, I'm an associate professor of art history at UMD, where I teach classes in contemporary art, art of Latin America, classes that are kind of cross-listed with museum studies, women, gender, and sexuality studies, and then also Latin American area studies. And that's what my research as an art historian focuses on: construction of gender, construction of race, and sexuality in contemporary Latin America. All right, so now that you know who we are, and Prove has, well, everybody's given a little bit about their organizations, why don't we give a few minutes to each pair here, and we'll talk a little bit about our major projects. So Terry and Jordan, if you want to tell us about what Blackbird Revolt is, and then Flo and I can give a little bit about Prove, what are our missions, what are we trying to accomplish, things like that. And Terry and Jordan, if you don't want to go first this time, I can put the pressure on Flo to start, but it's up to you all.
Do you want to share your screen, Jordan, or do you want me to share?
You want to share? You typically do better.
Okay. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? All right. So, Jordan, I'll let you talk about what we do. How about that?
That sounds good. So Blackbird Revolt, we're actually art and design based company. We started here in Duluth in 2017, January 2017. We were looking at a way to combine my skills and Terry's skills. She is the artist and the designer that creates a lot of the beautiful work that you see come out of Blackbird. But we created it as a platform, as a tool to really engage folks and challenge narratives and messaging in our community, in our culture, to use art and design to build just, equitable, and frankly, dope creative communities. We wanted to be able to have some ownership over the work that we were doing and have some space to begin to build a stronger network, to build resources, and to bring folks together to continue to do the work that we had already been doing in community, but to do it in a way that was more focused and intentional. And so we've done a lot of different things. We primarily do graphic design, but we don't stop there. Really, we do design as a concept for the most part. We do branding. So one example, MLK work that we've done over the last, I think, 3 or 4 years. We have branded those events. Each year of the 4 years, we would pick an MLK speech or a list of MLK speeches and then present to a committee and then come up with themes, a brand surrounding that speech. So we'd go over the speech and try to evoke the messages in that speech that year. And so the branding would cover like everything from posters, buttons, t-shirts, the slides, but also we were really central to organizing the events overall. Terry was central to planning the rallies over the years and bringing in speakers and those types of things. And then I've helped logistically and as part of the committee on a number of years. So that's one of the things that we've done. So we do a lot of branding, we do a lot of graphic design work, website design, logos, that kind of stuff. But we also do some organizing through our work. And then we do different exhibition design. This is an example of something that we did in tandem with Clayton Jackson McGee, the organization. They did an oral history project where they collected oral histories from Black elders here in Duluth. And so this show, the life, the work, the fight, we basically split up their stories into kind of 3 themes. The life is really about kind of their personal lives. The work was about like economics and labor, and the fight was about the fight for racial justice. And so we designed these panels. Daniel Oyinloye did the photos of the elders on the panels, and then we basically curated the content and worked with Heidi Bach Hansen, a local historian, to really work on what history worked well. So that's another example of a project we did. We also do like apparel and print design, so buttons, posters, stickers, t-shirts, crew necks, all that sort of stuff. That came out of us talking about, you know, what do you wear to your next protest, right? Like, how do you show support for something without even speaking words into existence? And so this is something that kind of allows us to be creative about the things that we want to make. And it allows us to say what we want to say. And it's also like a really cool thing, apparel design and putting stuff on t-shirts, because you make something and then people buy these things and then they choose to put them on their bodies, which is like the ultimate compliment, because they could wear anything and they're choosing to wear something that you've made, which is really spectacular. And it's gotten to the point where people wear our stuff and they don't even know who we are. And so we'll walk down the street and then have our shirts on, which is pretty cool. So that's something we do as well.
Oh, sorry.
This is, I'll probably talk more about this later, but this is a recent zine that we put out there, Opere, which was not a response. We were planning to put this zine out for a while, but then the murder of George Floyd happened and the uprisings gained momentum. And so it shifted direction a little bit, but this is something we put out there for the public, and it's free, that you can get it digitally on our website.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that'll come up later, I think. All Black Zine, I mentioned this in my bio. This is a project of mine. Originally, it was a little bit more rudimentary, where we did it by hand and then turned the handwriting into a type, so it was easier to upload our blog posts and stuff. But this is a project that we still support. Looking to get back into this, moving to St. Paul, because the designer that actually rebranded All Black Zine and kind of re-energized it actually lives in Minneapolis, and that's the reason why we haven't been creating more, is because she moved. But since we'll be near, we'll probably kick this off again and do more shows. So
We may have to make those traveling exhibitions.
yeah.
Come back to Prov.
Absolutely. And that's like our tagline, I feel like, is we're not done with Duluth. So it's a constant thing. But so here is a project that I've worked on since earning my MFA in design research and anthropology. And what I decided to look at was Black women and natural hair, and how it affects self-identity of Black women and the societal implications of natural hair, and the injustices just wrapped up in what our hair texture is. And so Project Natural is a project that is not only like an exhibition of like illustrations and putting like visualizing stories from other Black women, but then also I host workshops and a symposium around the events. So looking forward to what this will look like when COVID-19 has a vaccine and people are able to get into space again with one another. And then, you know, what does it look like to have like some digital type of forums and whatnot to talk about this. But it's a really cool project. It really brings a lot of Black women together to learn about, you know, all of the historical stuff around natural hair and how we can create community. And then another project most recently is Umbra, which was an exhibition centered around the experiences of Black women. And I showed this at Zeitgeist in November. And really it came, there was like themes around the things that Black women experience. And so I have kind of this really gritty illustration style, but really tried to center and focus, like just making the Black really saturated. So I have kind of like pale colors in the background. But yeah, so this project incorporated not only like these visuals, and you can see more of the exhibition if you'd like on umbraexhibit.com, but not only did it incorporate an exhibition, but then we had a zine. I had a zine that went with it, and it was kind of two-sided where folks could interact with it if you were a Black woman, and then the other side if you were anyone else, and interact with different ways. And so I really like to play around with, especially doing exhibition design, like really about the user experience, like how are folks experiencing what I'm trying to communicate. So we had a lot of different elements within the exhibition, like a 3D, area where people got to put on some goggles, which like seems so horrible right now, but maybe that'll be able to happen soon. But it's just a really cool experience. I try to make it so that people not only like got to see things, but then got to actually feel things and experience things or put weights on to help folks to kind of feel what it's like to hold the weight of whatever microaggressions or tokenism or whatever that Black women experience. And so I think I'm just true to my core as far as being someone who is interested in communicating certain messages, but then also someone who is an educator. And so I think this exhibit kind of was like right at that balance of, validating the experiences of Black women, but then also educating folks who don't identify as a Black woman. And then lastly, the project that I work on, Racism Untaught, is like full on educator hat on right now, but basically it's a model that helps folks walk through racialized design. And so myself and Lisa Mercer, who works at the University of Illinois, we came up with this workboard and these cards. And right now we're in like this manufacturing phase, and especially being like pressed by other companies to do this workshop with them. But it helps folks like get an instance of racism. So either an artifact, a system, or experience. And then they can walk through the design research process, which we've kind of changed up just a bit, but they're able to walk through and actually recreate or reimagine what this racialized object could look like and how you could actually move towards reparations, to be honest. And so I have an example down there at the bottom of like Aunt Jemima rebranding, a transition package, and then also like the final packaging, what that could look like. And I did this back like when, 2017, 2018. This was way before Aunt Jemima said they were changing their thing. Just want y'all to know, this has been something that Black people have been talking about like forever, about the problematic stuff of like Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, Chiquita Banana. We have always been mentioning this, and it's like just now, like, oh my gosh, George Floyd died, so now we have to listen, which is like a little, I guess, just a side note of irritation that I have. But this was been done. I wrote papers on this. So so that is a project that I work on. So yeah.
All right, thank you. Flo, do you want to kick it off? I've got our website up. So I'm going to share my screen, I think, maybe.
All right. Well, y'all know, and if you didn't know, we're huge fans of Project Natural and Blackbird Revolt and all of the many amazing projects that Terry and Jordan work on. So we've been super lucky to have hosted many of their events and Prove. So the reason why Prove exists is because we have a love for our community, and we found out many years ago, Prove is now on this October. We would have had our 9th anniversary, but we're just going to skip this anniversary and jump up to hopefully to be able to celebrate our 10th anniversary in public with people. But so we are all volunteer, nonprofit, experimental art gallery. We are in downtown Duluth. We've been there for most of our existence, and we've stayed open because of all of the volunteers' like undying passion for contemporary art, but also for experimental art. We like to make our own rules, and we've been successful at it and sometimes not so successful at it, but we really like what we've got going on. We've been able to use our space to host anything from like super DIY weddings because folks just wanted to get married and they really liked our space. We've hosted lots of workshops. We used to host a monthly opening, which now seems extremely exhausting just to even think about having an opening every month. The second Friday of every month, we would host, hundreds of people. They would all squish into the space and they would see weird stuff, normal stuff, more weird stuff. And throughout the years, it's been really great to hear from our community that our space really is able to fill the niche for what other bigger institutional spaces isn't able to give them, we allow for folks to fully express themselves regardless of what that looks like. I think we have like one rule besides don't be a piece of shit, is just don't put holes in our walls. But we really like working with people that, here's a cheesy line, like to push the envelope. And we've been hosting a couple workshops with youth in our community for the last, just a little over a year, but unfortunately, Prov is not open right now because of COVID. We've decided to take a little break, and we're probably going to be opening our doors as soon as things are a little bit more under control. And our first exhibit will be Carolyn Olson. She's been doing great portraits of essential workers through since the beginning of March. So we're super excited to have those in our space whenever that is. I think it'll be weird to have a lot of folks again in our space, but I think we're really excited. And anything you want to add, Jamie?
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit about, I don't know, about our mission a little bit more. So I came to Prov, I moved here in like 2013, I think. I came to Prov one day for Friday night opening. And then I met Flo and Taylor because I asked them to come and speak to my museum studies class. And in hearing what their vision for Prov was, it was something that really excited me. It was something that I really wanted to be a part of. And now like we give this spiel every year, every spring to my students. But the gallery was really founded by young emerging artists right at the sort of graduation from college to like first year out of college age. And, people who sort of looked around in the downtown space or in the Twin Ports area and didn't really see a space for them as new artists, as young artists who really just wanted a space to kind of experiment. And there was one other gallery at the time, Ochre Ghost. And so Prov and Ochre Ghost kind of filled those spots. And then our gallery has continued since then. And our board has been kind of fluid ever since then. People kind of coming into the space and working, leaving when they need to go on to create other things. But we've always kind of held that central mission that this is a space where people are allowed to do basically what they want to do. And that means not only the artists that we work with, but also those of us who are on the board. This is a space for projects. It's a space for kind of testing out ideas. And one of the things that we really love is this really communal aspect and a really collaborative approach to what we do here. So when we are kind of planning out our years, very often, and I'll say we have three kind of co-directors. It's Flo, myself, and then our third co-director, Taylor Klein. And then Emma Spooner is also a really important part of Prov, and we've had a couple of different student interns over the years. So when it comes to kind of planning our programming, one or several of us will kind of come in with just like a little seed of an idea. We workshop it together, we keep talking it out, brainstorming, and then eventually we kind of develop it into a more fully formed idea. We also love when artists come to us and they say, I've got this idea for something. I've never been able to do it anywhere. I just want to try it out. And one of the things that Taylor, Flo, and I all love to do is to make that happen by working really closely with the artists and again, just kind of providing not only the venue and the platform, but providing the support whether that's sort of helping them with grant writing and getting material support, or, you know, Taylor helping to completely transform the gallery into whatever the artist's vision might be, working with co-curators and helping to realize their vision. So we see Prove as a very communal and collaborative thing, and something that exists and kind of operates with this really strong sense of engagement in our community, I think. We have certain shows that we kind of revisit, or we have annually or almost annually. For 5 years we did Applies with Purpose exhibit that Taylor spearheaded. We raised over the 5 years almost $15,000 for the construction of Gary New Duluth Skate Park. Since I came on board, we've been doing the WTF show. Flo does a lot of curating and kind of taking the lead on certain shows. One of my favorites that Flo and I worked on just a couple of years ago was a show about vulnerability and identity, which was really wonderful. You know, I think that those are some of the, I'm just gonna go to this one, which you can see some of, these are from the latest WTF show. And then these are just some of what we've been doing since COVID happened and we've kind of shut down. One of the great things about having the space is not only can we host art exhibits and workshops and things like that, but it gives us a kind of platform to amplify voices, also to contribute to different projects and different organizations and help support people that we care very deeply about. Is that good? Okay, I will stop sharing my screen. And we'll come back all together. All right, so one of the things that, that Amanda had posed to us when she came to us with the idea of this talk was to mention the zine projects that, that we have in common. And Flo is a zine artist. I know Jordon is also a zine artist. Terry has done a number of zines as well. So why don't we talk a little bit about zines, what they represent as an art form, why we're drawn to them, what we think they provide for audiences, and how we use them.
Cool, I can start. So a workshop that I taught recently was about making zines. And the main topic that I wanted folks to explore was there's a phrase by an Australian queer artist called the Self-Love Club. And this artist has a lot of rules that revolve around this club, mainly about self-respect, respect for others, accountability, taking care of your mental health and your physical health, which is something that was very influential when I truly started making zines like 3-4 years ago. And my favorite thing about making zines is that they can be about whatever you want them to be about. They can be very therapeutic, they can be very cathartic, and to me, they've truly been like life-saving just because of like my mental health things that I work through with my art. So at this workshop that I taught, I made this little zine about, made a little zine about making zines. And like the cool thing is that all you need is one piece of paper, right? So you get to fold. I'm very like cutting, pasting, whatever I find, make it work. And then I love writing. I love my handwriting. I'm very obsessed with handwriting and lettering. So I love practicing that. And I think zines are a great example to use different kinds of handwritings, even if I love when specifically they look a little like sloppy, because I think that's like an aesthetic of zines that you don't necessarily have to abide by. It's You know, I love that zines come from fan fiction of science fiction. Like, that's super cool. There's a lot of history. It's also helped a lot of subcultures like make their statements and their passions more accessible, because it's not truly about a publication or an institution making money. It's more so about sharing information with other people for the sake of sharing information. How could that not be great? Sharing images and quotes, whatever it is. One of the folks that attended this workshop, Heidi Blunt, great artist in town, she made this little zine. Again, that workshop just pertained to self-love. And I'm gonna let you know the rules, just because I think everybody needs to know what Self-Love Club. You have to always show yourself respect, love, forgiveness, and understanding. You must also show each other respect, love, forgiveness, and understanding. And you must be kind to your body, and you must take care of your mental health. So that was something those rules are something that I've learned to live by. And I've made some zines regarding, like, I like to call it smut. The little zines that I make that are my, how I deal with like the stuff in my brain that I can't really tell like a talk therapist, because I just can't. So I find quotes by other artists that I feel like kind of say what I want it to say. And that's like the super magic of zines, is that as long as you're paraphrasing or using other people's material for the goodness of keeping zine culture going, it's okay. But don't just copy paste people's stuff. Like, you have to do something with the information. So I love making these kind of like how to take care of Flo's brain zines. And sometimes I share them with people, sometimes I don't. But that's zines for me.
This may be like a totally under the rock question, but what is a zine? Can you kind of give me a definition so that I can kind of have a better idea of what you're talking about? Because I'm not on the same page as you.
Yeah. Jordan, do you want to take that?
Sure. Zine is short for magazine. It's essentially a self-published magazine, like Flo said, based in science fiction. I mean, that's where some of the origins are, science fiction. But most zine culture is like subversive or counterculture, and it's really they're really created out of messaging or intent, and it's not really for capital. So zine culture is its own sort of unique thing. You're not publishing just to publish. I mean, some folks are, but it's really about the messaging, the content, and the culture surrounding it. So a lot of zinesters are like queer folks, radical feminists, cat lovers, and not just normal cat lovers that love cats a little too much, that they write about their cats and all the weird things their cats do in the zine. So they're pretty counterculture. So that was one of the things that I did when I started All Black Zine, is I started getting into zine culture because, I was in Duluth. I came here in 2009. And Duluth has never really been great for folks of color and Black folks. But when I was here, I just wasn't finding any organizations or platforms that were representing Black folks and Black voices. And so I didn't have any money. I'm just young dude, 19, 20. And I felt that, Black progressives, especially like queer Black folk that wanted to say something, needed a space for that. And so we just started writing and creating a zine together, just to get out our anger, frustrations, our thoughts about being Black in Duluth. And we wrote under pseudonyms so that, our identities were protected, because it's not safe to speak your mind as a Black person pretty much anywhere. And so, it was a way to talk about the things that were a little taboo to talk about, to call out some of the things that we weren't able to call out in other spaces or as ourselves, or that weren't seen as civil. And so that was what that zine was kind of about. So the really counterculture And they run the gamut. I went to a zine fest in Minneapolis a couple years ago at the Hennepin County Library. And so you have all these zinesters on all the different levels, and like any kind of zine you can really think of is there. And so you have like racial justice zines and dope feminist zines. I met this one little girl who did a zine about all the weird shit around her parents' house. So she like took pictures of a Polaroid and then like cut it out and then put it in this zine and then made a copy. And so there's all sorts of different things. And because it's like, it's pretty anti-capitalist too. The zinesters don't really buy zines from other zinesters. You just do zine trades. So everyone's just giving each other their zines and then receiving zines. So then by the time you leave, you just have this library of zines. And so, yeah, that's kind of what a zine is and a little bit about the culture.
Okay, so you said something that kind of stuck in my head, and I'm just going to kind of call you on it and ask you for a little bit more information. So I have always looked at Duluth as being more of a progressive type of city. So how are we falling short as far as the Blacks are concerned? Because maybe I'm really out of touch, but I want to hear it, you know?
Yeah. Yes. As a representative of the Blacks, I will say this. Duluth is probably the worst place I have ever been in my life for Black people by every measure of racism, systemic and interpersonal. Graduation rates, arrest rates, employment, home ownership. Minnesota down the line is one of the worst states to be Black in, and Duluth helps that those numbers and those metrics. So almost by every measurable statistic, Duluth is a really, really difficult place to be Black, and it still has some really, really deep roots of white supremacy. In the 1920s, the KKK thrived in Duluth. Woodland was a hot neighborhood for that. My house that I'm selling is actually in Woodland. 1,500 members of the community were registered with the local chapter of the KKK. And obviously, you know, we have the lynchings in Duluth, which 10,000 Duluthians attended, and dozens and dozens and dozens of people that live in our community now are direct descendants of those people who were never, ever held accountable. And so it's a really, really difficult place for folks of color, for Black folks. So yeah.
Thank you, Jordon, for speaking to that.
Yes, thank you.
Terry, did you want to talk about zines at all? No? Okay, you're good. I'm gonna show one thing. I'm gonna try and share my screen again.
No, not show my email.
No, I know, I'm sorry.
Just think. I don't feel.
Okay, it present, sorry. That's what I meant to do. So at Prove, we've not only hosted a number of zine workshops, both for youth and adults, but we also, and we've had zine exhibitions as well, but we maintain a zine library. And so this is a good example of that kind of anti-capitalist economy of trade that Jordon was talking about with zines. These are all zines that are made by not only people in Duluth, but people from across the nation. We maintain, I think, the only zine library in Duluth. And again, we have hundreds of them on all kinds of different topics, not only from things having to do with like political or social issues, but we also have a wonderful one about cats. So any topic, They're here in the gallery. We love it when people come in and just kind of spend some time with them, looking at them. And it's a great way to kind of inspire more people to use the zine as a format for kind of getting their ideas and their thoughts out and distributed in a free way, in a much more approachable way, and a very accessible way. All right, so we've also kind of broached the topic of social justice quite a bit. Do we want to talk a little bit about how that informs all of the work that we do?
What, could I ask a question before you move on past?
Sure.
I just wanted to ask, so the size, it looks like a typical size then of a zine is kind of like a card size, at least from your library there. Is there a variety? I mean, are there some that even, you know, are bigger and several pages? I mean, is it just unlimited on what size they can be? And
Yeah, there's a lot of freedom in zines, and I think that's one of the real kind of underlying concepts behind the zine. We have some that are really, really tiny, so showing like one that unfolds into a poster. We also have some that have been created inside of hardback books. So the artists, they use books, already published books, and then they will add their own images or add their own text. Yeah, so there's a lot of freedom with zines.
yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, so we could go back to the topic of social justice, although we all have kind of hit on that. I don't know how our work. Does anybody want to say anything about that? Or should we open it up to some more questions?
Maybe questions?
Got it, sorry.
I do. Next year will be the Nordic Center's 10th anniversary too. So Prove a Gallery and the Nordic Center, I guess, were born at the same time.
Ooh.
So
All right.
we made it.
I mean, have we made it yet?
We're trying.
A lot of months
Trying.
left.
We still have 4
don't
months
push
of this
it.
year left, so we'll see.
But I love it when we open our doors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So.
I mean, it's great. And I mean, we both have really great snacks, but Nordic Center has the pancakes in heart shapes that I love.
Which we always run next door and steal.
Swedish waffles.
If it's, you know, how do you guys pay, you know, for your space?
How does Pro pay for their space?
Yeah, how do you guys pay your bills? You know, if you guys are volunteers and you don't really charge your artists, right? And do you charge people to come to the exhibits or?
So all of our shows are free unless we have like a performer from out of town that requests that we charge for entrance, usually like musicians that are touring for like a living room show. But everything that we do at Pro is for accessibility. So something like money to get into our space, it's not something that we're interested in. However, we love money in other ways because money pays rent. So we have a membership. We have membership at Pro Gallery from students to anybody that has, you know, so much money that they want to give us over $2,000. We'll take it because it just helps us with the lights. It helps us with paint. It helps us with being able to pay for shipping fees so that we can get art from folks that live across the country, because we're really lucky that social media is a thing. So we're able to connect with artists outside of our area, which not only makes our shows, it enriches the show because our whole purpose is to show different perspectives on specific topics, not just a super like what Duluth thinks about vulnerability. We're interested in like what people that are living through whatever think about vulnerability or any other topic. So we have memberships, and you can sign up for that in our space or through our website. We also do, we also sell work, which is great. We've been able in the past to pay most of our rent because of art that we were selling. We have sold, we also have some things for consignment. So there's this artist that we love down in the Twin Cities, Sweeney Brown. We sell their mugs. We've been able to sell their mugs like for almost a year now. Other than that, just in-kind donations is one of them. Besides membership, people do donate money because they really believe in what we do, and also grants. We love grants, and Jamie applies to all the grants.
Yay. Yes, it's great to have a grant writer, so that's awesome.
Yes. One of the things that we try to do, even though like we make all of our workshops, our workshops are free also, and we try to make everything as successful as possible, but it's still really important for us to be able to pay the artists who show in our space, who offer workshops in our space. And we think that is super important, not only in our community for supporting the arts, but also supporting the artists who may not be supported by traditional means. So we try to not only write grants for ourselves, but again, we do grant writing and we do support for as many local artists as we can.
That's cool.
And personal money. We have in the past put our own money to pay for rent because that's how much we believe in our space. We buy the materials. If we need to buy some paint, we'll pay for it. We don't need to be reimbursed. It's, you know, it's more than a hobby. It's, it's what we really believe in.
Your passion.
Yes, but we shouldn't, like, as much as we emphasize that we volunteer and that we have passion for this, we don't expect artists to volunteer things. And we would, I don't think we'd ask that one. We did have a question in the chat about the opera zine. Terry and Jordan, would you like to talk a little bit more about that project? Because it's a really beautiful zine that you all just put out. And I will also sneak in here that we would love to buy a copy of it for our zine library.
Sure. Well, first, technically you can't buy a copy, but you can have a copy shipped to you and you just cover shipping, which is like, I don't know, 46 cents or I don't know what the shipping is. Don't quote me. Okay. But you just cover shipping.
$3.50.
Oh, okay. It's $3.50. All right. Sorry. I'm using the 1940s numbers.
You forgot that the zine is like 80 pages.
Oh, that's right. I forgot how I forget how thick it is. So basically, it's like this 60-page zine. It ended up being way longer than I thought and intended. But really, we were working on this project as a project building up to June 15 to mark the commemoration of Clayton Jackson McGee here in Duluth, and wanted to talk about some of the elements, some of the necessary elements that needed to be explored in relation to June 15, because a lot of folks will talk about the lynchings in this one event, but not about the culture that allows 10,000 folks to show up to watch a lynching. White supremacy has to be thriving in order for a community to allow and then accept and then celebrate and then cover up a lynching. And so we were working on that and some of those elements, and then the police murdered George Floyd. And this, because of the pandemic and because of the high profile murders throughout the year, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, other folks, which is like every other year, but coupled with the pandemic and all the other things that were going on. And then it happening in Minneapolis, again, a city and a state where there are just horrible outcomes for folks of color across the board. These uprisings began, and we felt, it necessary to change directions a little bit and to put some information out there or some thoughts out there that are related to what kind of needs to be done, especially at a time where a lot of folks are looking for things to do. And what happens kind of every time is, like, we notice a lot of people will just go and join book clubs or read like White Fragility or some shit like that. And it's like, we don't need you to read books. That's actually not going to help you. I haven't read any of the books you've read. And here I am doing this work, engaging community, showing up to protests, challenging policy and practice. And so we need actual culture change. We need systems change. We need individuals to change. We need people to move money, move resources, move power, move narrative. And so we outlined basically 10 ways to do that, and then highlighted some pretty tangible steps as to how folks can, one, the first step is like identifying your role in the social justice movement. And that's a model by Deepa Iyer, who's an author and anti-racist educator. And that can kind of help people get some language about how they show up in a space, because not all of us are disruptors. I'm not a disruptor. You're not going to find me at the front of a protest. I don't like to protest. I don't like to be out in the streets. And so we all play different roles in this movement. And so figuring out what those roles are, leaning into those roles. And then the second step is abolition, because we're abolitionists here at Blackbird Revolt. And we believe anyone who wants peace or believes in peace is an abolitionist. Or at least an abolitionist in training, because if you want peace, that means you have to get rid of systems of violence as well, which includes the police and prisons. And so step 2 is about abolition, and then it goes on to talk about these different other elements like establishing mutual aid networks and stepping out of the way, giving away power, resources, that kind of stuff. And it outlines some specific action steps that people can take. And so we put that out there, and we hope folks are engaging it and walking through those different steps of the process. Some folks already are. Like, I know Flo and Prove were helping out Dorothy Day with some mutual aid stuff. And so it was like, oh, it's cool to see that. I'm not saying the zine did that. I'm just saying it's cool to see those elements of the zine happening. And so we hope that folks are working through that zine and reading through that and actually taking some of that content to heart and then turning it into action.
Yes. Yeah. So Terry put the link to Opera, the online version, into the chat. So I hope everybody will see that. Get yourself a copy delivered to yourself. And I'm also going to say that you should make a donation to Blackbird Revolt because we should pay Terry and Jordon for the amazing work that they're doing. Not only in terms of art, but also the labor that they're putting in for community education. Are there any other questions that we could answer from the Grady Bunch?
Hello. I've been lurking in the background. I'm curious, this is especially for Prove, but also for Jordon and Terry possibly. Do you have any plans or ideas in the works for how to keep this like experimental arts community alive during COVID, whether through virtual events, like virtual art exhibitions, or like adaptive design? I'm just kind of curious if you have any thoughts or ideas that are run around those concepts.
Flo, do you want to take that, or do you want me to take it?
I can answer half, and then you can answer the other half. So, as we talked a little earlier, Prove's been around for 9 years, and we've carried the load of experimental art in the community for a really, really long time for free. So for the first time ever, we're gonna take a break and we're gonna use our platform to promote other artists that are constantly putting out work. So for example, that little, Jamie showed a picture of the Venmo, PayPals, and Cash Apps of Black folks in town that do a lot of work. That is something that we're doing. We're just promoting people to pay reparations or just pay people for their time because it matters. We're also compiling a list here pretty soon of other artists that are working in town that are constantly putting out work. One of our fellow friends, Nanika Banda, used to have a restaurant here in Duluth, Martha's Daughter. She's fundraising right now to have this bed and breakfast, and it's full of rich history of her family. So we're going to be promoting that. So we are going to kind of use all of this work that we've done for the last 9 years and just use our platform to promote other people who are constantly putting out work, not getting enough recognition or money, and just put them on the forefront. And we're going to take the tiniest break ever of 9 years, which is probably going to be like, what, 6-7 months, and then we'll be back when it's safe to be back.
Yeah. Because we're a volunteer organization, we all have other jobs. Taylor and Flo are essential workers. They have been hustling since COVID day one, and without a break. I'm about to start school here in a little bit, and so, you know, and none of us really feels comfortable right now opening up the gallery and hosting public events. So we are, like Flo said, we're just kind of leaning into it. We're leaning into the pandemic right now and figuring out ways that we can still kind of operate without hosting events and things like that. Terry and Jordan, what do you all have up next? Besides moving and changing your lives.
Yeah, so we have another zine project that is ARAC sponsored called Scene, and we'll be working on that for Black creatives and helping them to vision and hopefully heal and whatnot. So that is kind of in the forefront. We have a lot of visioning projects, I think, coming up. So like organizations also ask us to look at their policy and practices. So that is something that we're working on as well to help folks visualize or reimagine in a more equitable practice. So that is something that Jordon kind of leads. I'm starting my PhD in social justice education in September. So that is that. And Jordon is also starting a coding boot camp. So then we'll have a developer on our team to be able to really dive into the digital aspect of some of the work that we do. So
Do you want to pull up our secret project?
Ooh, no? Oh, what's a secret project?
The secret project we're working on with Kelsey, or no?
Oh yeah, I can pull that up.
Okay. So one of the things we're working on, this actually came out of a series of conversations with a friend who is a sign maker. I know this is being recorded, so it's not exactly a secret, but I was hoping to get funded by this arts organization to do this thing, but I never get funded because I'm not an artist. I'm just an arts organizer, and there's like no funding for arts organizers ever. So if I don't put something on a canvas, I can't get it. Which is a little frustrating. So I always have to like crowdfund or find other ways. But we were talking about, you know, how when we look at history in this country around race, racism, racial justice, oftentimes we look at the heroes like Martin Luther King and we like deify these people and they become unrealistic expectations of who we are. So no one ever sees themselves as Martin Luther King, even though he was just some dude. Or we just talk about the tragic. And oftentimes we don't really talk about all the stuff in between. You know, where were the parents, the children, the postal workers, the nurses, you know, throughout history? What were they doing at the height of the civil rights movement? What were they doing in the midst of Red Summer? What organizations, places, people were doing these different things? So we came up with this idea that also is kind of COVID safe. It's kind of, I mean, that's an asterisk. Is it? I mean, we're in a pandemic, it's not really safe. But this idea of marking these different locations around the state as historical locations. A lot of cities have like historical markers for certain things, but a lot of times that process is arduous. It's a little antiquated and outdated. All the markers look the same. They're always bronze. And so we wanted to do something that puts the history and the information back into the hands of the people in a way. And so basically we came up, can you show the plaque? We came up with this design. This symbol actually is a combination of symbols, but essentially it's two fists and also a chain breaking to represent racial justice. And so that's a mock-up of a fine concrete plaque that would then be mounted on all these different locations that tie to this history around, initially we'll start with Black history because that's who the team is, and as the team expands, we can expand the scope. But we'd put it on places and we'd approach places to get it put on these different buildings and spaces so folks can begin to recognize this larger network and these historically relevant sites. So for instance, if we look at places like Duluth, there's tons of places around Duluth. Alexander Miles, who held the patent for a pulley and an elevator system, used to live in Duluth. He had a barbershop, right? People should know where that barbershop is. People should know who he is, right? That story should be told. Huey's Chopstick Inn, right? We know, a lot of us know that restaurant. We know it's a Chinese restaurant. We might even know that, you know, that's Wing Young Huey's family, but a lot of folks don't know that it was one of the only restaurants in the 1950s that would actually serve Black people. And so these are stories, these are narratives, these are histories that matter and that need to be told. Because especially in Duluth, it became really, really clear talking about the lynchings. People think those lynchings are an anomaly. They think it's rare. They think racism is not in our faces. And when we begin to peel back the layers and find out about what Duluth has looked like and continues to look like in the state of Minnesota, we begin to see how we arrive at the place we are at, where police can kill George Floyd, and you know, all these other systems can harm Black folks. And so this is another element that kind of came out of this, is the subversive art approach. And so one of the things we're working on too is a incident calendar. Kind of like 0 days without an incident, something you might see in a warehouse, but we're actually doing that with lynchings and killings of Black people. And so there'll be kind of big blocks, plywood blocks that you can kind of touch and play with, and then you'll be able to codify. So this is what one of the faces of the block will look like, and you'll be able to codify it and set it to a number. So you could codify it by traditional definition of the lynchings, killings by police, and other ways that Black folks are murdered. And these icons on the blocks signify something. So meat or steak is, Black folks in this country have always been seen as essentially cattle for slaughter, just kind of open season on Black folks. And so we have these different iconographies, and then we're also designing cards and dice. And so it's this kind of subversive thing where at first glance.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I wish I could just finish the rest of his sentence.
Do you know what the end would
Where at first glance, it's just like this like kind of innocent object. And then when you get into it and you start to see, oh, okay.
It just seems like a playful.
Oh, you cut off. So I was trying to finish the sentence. You froze. So I was trying to finish your sentence.
That's okay.
Okay.
Well, at first glance, it looks, you know, pretty basic and like a toy. But the more you play with it, the more you realize what it actually means and what these things actually represent, which is pretty dark. So that's another element of the project that we're working on. So, yeah.
That's really great. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it. Any other questions?
I have one. So, Jordon and Teresa, it's nice to meet you.
Okay.
You two are going to be moving down to the Twin Cities, but you are still going to be a resource for Duluth. Is that what I'm hearing? And are there other folks in Duluth who are also working up their capacity to work with individuals and groups to move forward?
So you mean like visioning?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, I know you're moving to a new place, and are you training other folks in Duluth to do the kind of work that you're doing? I guess, is that what I'm saying?
I will say yes.
Okay.
We're yes. I don't want to give all the details of that thing because it's still being created, but I would say absolutely yes.
Good.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, there's so many dope folks in this community, and they're just in different circles, and this community systemically and culturally hasn't done a great job of uplifting those folks, whether it's through grant processes and how folks get funded. Those processes need to radically shift and change, because grants favor people who speak a certain language, write a certain way, have relationships with the white people that oversee the grants, and have time to write those damn things. Whereas like folks like us are trying to actually change the circumstances, and then some white dude comes over and he's like, you should apply for this $500 grant and it'll take you 3 hours. And you're like, that's a waste of my time at that point. And so there's a lot of folks in these different circles who are doing really amazing work, especially in arts-based community. And I will say, like, I'm gonna give another shout out to Prove, because like without Prove, Terry and I's work probably wouldn't be happening, because Prove was a platform for me to find my voice and find how I wanted to do the work and how I wanted to engage in this community. And so, you know, everyone on this call should be members. I think our membership probably lapsed, so this reminds me that I think we have to re-up. But
you get an email or something?
Yeah, I don't know. But we need to re-up that membership. But everyone should be a member, because it's a really important space that they provide a platform that just nobody else would have provided for me. Nobody else would have said, okay, we'll help you, we'll walk you through it. So like Prove is definitely one place to support, because even if you can't reach into some of those other circles, Prove is reaching into some of those other circles. And then there's some really dope musicians and artists and organizers. Daniel and Sandra at Dansan Creatives, I can't throw enough love at them. I mean, Daniel's been working in Duluth for 13 years, doing stuff with youth and kids especially. So, you know, there's a lot of dope people. So I don't want to say we're leaving a gap, because there's plenty of amazing folks, and especially young folks coming up in the community that are just doing some amazing work. So they're out there, and folks will organically fill any gaps that we might leave.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Amanda?
Yeah, well, we are at 6:10, so that's our social hour. Thank you so much to Terry and Jordan and Jamie and Flo. This has been an amazing hour of conversation. And I do just want to say, like, even though you can't buy the zine, you can definitely donate to Blackbird Revolt and the wonderful work they're doing. And we can definitely donate to Prove. And then Prove has I mean, I'm really excited to see the continuing list that you're developing of artists in the area to support. You've got a great list up on your website now, but it's really cool to hear that you're expanding upon that too. So I don't know, as an arts community, we need to step up and really support this work in our community, because there's a lot of work to do. And so thanks for coming tonight. And, you know, I hope I can see y'all soon. I hope we can all see each other soon.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.